Welcome to today's Lost Souls, where we bring you the most impactful and unforgettable stories from around the world. Today, we remember the lives of remarkable individuals whose legacies continue to inspire and resonate, from iconic musicians to trailblazing activists. Join us as we celebrate their extraordinary contributions and bid farewell to those who have left an indelible mark on our lives. Stay tuned for a journey through their incredible stories.
Eileen Fulton. Eileen Fulton, the legendary actress best known for her role as Lisa Grimaldi on the long-running CBS soap opera, As the World Turns, died on July 14, 2025, in Asheville, North Carolina, after a period of declining health. Her passing marks the end of an extraordinary era in American daytime television, as Fulton's career spanned nearly 60 years, making her one of the most iconic and enduring figures in the history of soap operas. Born Margaret Elizabeth McClarty on September 13, 1933, in Asheville, North Carolina, Eileen Fulton was the daughter of a Methodist minister and a public school educator. She graduated from Greensboro College in 1956 with a music degree and soon moved to New York City to pursue her dreams of acting, encouraged by her supportive family. There, Fulton studied under legendary acting coaches Sanford Meisner and Lee Strasberg and took dance lessons from Martha Graham, laying a solid foundation for a lifetime on stage and screen. Fulton's groundbreaking role came in 1960 when she was cast as Lisa Miller later. Grimaldi on As the World Turns, her portrayal of Lisa as one of television's early bad girls, infamous for her scheming, tumultuous relationships and 8 marriages, revolutionized the soap genre and made Lisa Grimaldi a household name. Fulton played the character with only brief hiatuses until the series ended in 2010, a remarkable 5-decade tenure that saw her become not just a star, but a fixture in the lives of millions of viewers. Her work earned her induction into the Soap Opera Hall of Fame in 1998 and the Daytime Emmy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2004. Beyond her legendary soap career, Fulton appeared on Broadway, notably in the original production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and was a fixture of the cabaret scene in New York and Los Angeles. She authored mystery novels and 2 autobiographies, How My World Turns and As My World Still Turns, reflecting on her storied life and career. She retired in 2019 and moved to Black Mountain, North Carolina, to be closer to family in her final years. Fulton is survived by her brother Charles Furman McClarty, niece Catherine Morris, and several extended family members. Her funeral will be held on August 9, 2025, at Central United Methodist Church in Asheville. Eileen Fulton's influence on television and popular culture is indelible. Her presence as Lisa Grimaldi defined an era of American storytelling, and her work shaped generations of actors and viewers. She will be remembered as an innovator, a trailblazer, and a beloved star whose artistry and charisma left an enduring mark on the history of entertainment. Felix Baumgartner. Felix Baumgartner, the Austrian daredevil renowned worldwide for his record-breaking skydiving feat from the edge of space, tragically died on July 16, 2025, in a paragliding accident along Italy's Adriatic coast in Porto San Elpidio. Known as Fearless Felix, Baumgartner lost control of his motorized paraglider, which crashed into the side of a swimming pool at a hotel. Investigations suggest he may have suffered a cardiac arrest while airborne, which led to the loss of control of his glider. Despite rescue workers' immediate efforts, including cardiac massage, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Baumgartner rose to international fame on October 14, 2012, when he executed a daring jump from a helium balloon at approximately 39 kilometers, 128,000 feet, altitude over Roswell, New Mexico, sponsored by Red Bull. During this historic jump, he became the first human to break the sound barrier in freefall, reaching speeds exceeding 833 miles per hour 1,343 kph, or 1.25 times the speed of sound. The jump echoed the pioneering 1947 supersonic flight milestone by Chuck Yeager and captivated a global audience. Baumgartner's descent lasted nearly 9 minutes, during which he endured a dangerous flat spin but regained control and deployed his parachute safely, landing in the New Mexico desert. A lifelong extreme sports enthusiast, Baumgartner's exploits extended beyond his stratospheric jump. He participated in numerous high-risk stunts, including base jumps from landmarks like the Petronas Towers in Malaysia and Rio's Christ the Redeemer statue, as well as skydiving across the English Channel. His career reflected relentless passion and precision. Colleagues and fans hailed him as smart, meticulous, and fearless. In his final hours, Baumgartner posted on Instagram warning of too much wind, indicating challenging conditions shortly before the fatal accident. The local mayor expressed the community's deep grief and honored Baumgartner as a symbol of extreme flight and bravery. A female hotel staff member was also injured during the crash and hospitalized. Red Bull, his longtime sponsor, shared deep sorrow over the loss, emphasizing his determination and professionalism. Baumgartner's legacy remains immortalized by his boundary-pushing achievements that expanded human limits and inspired millions worldwide to dream big and dare greatly. Robbie Pardlo, the talented singer best known as a member of the Grammy-nominated R&B group City High, died on July 17, 2025, in Willingboro, New Jersey. He was surrounded by family and close friends at the time of his passing. The cause of death has not been publicly disclosed, although reports indicate that he had been hospitalized days prior due to complications related to heart failure. Pardlo had battled alcoholism and addiction for years, challenges that intensified after City High disbanded in 2003. Born on August 13, 1978, Pardlo co-founded City High with his high school girlfriend Claudette Ortiz and their friend Ryan Toby. Mentored by Wyclef Jean on his Booga Basement label, the group achieved significant success in the early 2000s with hits like What Would You Do?, a socially conscious single that peaked at No. 8 on the Billboard Hot 100 and earned them a Grammy nomination for Best R&B Performance by a Duo or Group. Their debut and only album, City High 2001, also featured the popular track Carmel, which reached No. 18 on the charts, cementing the group's brief but impactful legacy. After the group's breakup, Pardlo continued to perform as part of the R&B quartet, First Take, and collaborated with renowned artists including Whitney Houston and Lil' Kim. Despite his professional efforts, he struggled with personal challenges, including a public battle with alcoholism that was featured on A's Intervention in 2010, where he candidly discussed the toll it took on his life and family. He achieved sobriety following rehab, but reportedly experienced a relapse in recent years. Robbie Pardlo is survived by his wife Annika and their 2 children, Lyric and Cord Andrew Pardlo. His family also includes his mother Marion, brother Gregory Pardlo, a Pulitzer Prize-winning poet and professor, and Aunt Cynthia Boyer. Known as a passionate Philadelphia Eagles fan, Pardlo's legacy is remembered fondly by fans and peers alike as a gifted artist who grappled with life's difficulties, yet left an enduring mark on R&B music. John MacArthur, a prominent and theologically uncompromising evangelical pastor and teacher, died on July 14, 2025, at a hospital in Santa Clarita, California, after a brief illness caused by pneumonia. He was 86 years old. MacArthur led Grace Community Church in Southern California for more than 5 decades, becoming a highly influential figure among conservative evangelicals and shaping generations of pastors through his expository preaching and seminary leadership. Born on June 19, 1939 in Los Angeles, MacArthur was the son of a Baptist pastor. An aspiring professional football player in his youth, a serious car accident at age 18 shifted his path toward ministry. He studied under Charles L. Feinberg and developed a strong commitment to expository teaching, focusing on verse-by-verse exposition and historical context of Scripture, which became his hallmark preaching style. Since becoming pastor of Grace Community Church in 1969, MacArthur stood out for his refusal to adapt to seeker-sensitive trends that favored casual or emotionally driven sermons. Instead, he maintained a formal pulpit style, often wearing a suit and tie, and delivered lengthy sermons up to 5 times a week, challenging the contemporary evangelical movement with an unwavering focus on doctrinal purity. MacArthur's ministry expanded through his influential radio and television program, Grace to You, as well as his role as president of the Masters University and the Masters Seminary. He was known for his scholarly teaching, prolific writing, including the widely regarded MacArthur Study Bible, and for mentoring many future evangelical leaders. His later years were marked by health struggles, including multiple heart and lung surgeries over recent years. In July 2025, he was hospitalized with pneumonia, and church leaders announced that he was not expected to recover. MacArthur's death was met with tributes from around the world, including from figures like Franklin Graham, who praised his Bible teaching and legacy beyond his theological contributions. MacArthur gained national attention for his firm stance during the COVID-19 pandemic by keeping his church open despite public health orders, exemplifying his commitment to religious freedom and biblical principles. He is survived by his wife, Patricia, and their 4 children. MacArthur's legacy is characterized by his passionate commitment to biblical doctrine, expository preaching, and his role as a culture warrior within evangelical Christianity. Michael Andrew Fox was born on June 9, 1961 in the snow-dusted city of Edmonton, Alberta, the 4th of 5 children in a household that never stayed still for long. His father, William, served in the Canadian Armed Forces before joining the police, while his mother, Phyllis, balanced clerical work with the demands of a bustling family. Each military transfer uprooted the Fox clan to another base, Winnipeg's icy prairies, Vancouver Island's rainy coasts, turning relocation into ritual, and teaching young Michael to treat every new neighborhood as a stage where he could audition his wit, mimic accents, and earn quick friendships. That restless rhythm forged an adaptable spirit, a knack for observing people closely, and a conviction that humor could make even the draftiest barracks feel like home. In Burnaby, a suburb of Vancouver, where the family finally settled when Michael was in his early teens, he discovered 2 anchors that helped offset the constant motion. Playing guitar in basement jam sessions and performing skits at school assemblies. Short for his age and shy about it, he learned to redirect teasing with a one-liner or a spot-on impression of a teacher, transforming perceived weakness into comedic strength. Evening television marathons, particularly The Dick Van Dyke Show and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, became impromptu masterclasses with Michael studying timing, physicality, and the invisible currents that pull an audience toward laughter. By 15, he had resolved that acting wasn't merely a pastime. It was the craft through which he could package all that wanderer's experience into stories that traveled farther than any moving truck. Opportunities surfaced sooner than expected when CBC producers auditioned local teens for a sitcom called Leo and Me. Michael's blend of mischief and vulnerability landed him the role of young Jaime, and he slipped onto Canadian television screens with a confidence that belied his age. Crew members recall his habit of lingering on set long after scenes, rapt, peppering directors with questions about blocking, camera angles, and the subtle art of stealing a scene without stealing focus. Each answer fed an insatiable curiosity, and each paycheck, modest though it was, went into a savings jar labeled Los Angeles. The notion of Hollywood felt gargantuan, but to Michael, it was simply the next city on the family map, one he'd moved to by choice rather than orders. In 1979, at just 18, he persuaded his supportive yet practical father to drive him in a trunk of hopeful belongings down the Pacific Coast Highway to California. Because the Screen Actors Guild already claimed a Michael Fox, he wedged a middle initial into his new professional name, opting for J in homage to character actor Michael J. Pard. The change was more than clerical. It symbolized reinvention. The moment a Canadian teenager turned migratory childhood into portable courage and staked it on the most competitive streets in show business. The journey south marked the close of a formative chapter, one filled with uniforms, cardboard boxes, and improvised punchlines that taught him to sprint toward uncertainty instead of hiding from it. Those early years fastened 3 lessons that would echo throughout his life. First, that laughter is a passport through unfamiliar territory. Second, that observation is a superpower for anyone eager to reflect the world back to itself. And third, that perseverance can shrink impossibility to manageable size. Armed with these insights, Michael J. Fox arrived in Los Angeles, ready to audition for parts far larger than any he had yet imagined, roles that would soon catapult him onto sound stages, magazine covers, and ultimately into cultural iconography. Landing in Los Angeles with limited funds, Michael J. Fox confronted a landscape of stalled auditions, typecasting hurdles, and the sobering arithmetic of rent versus dwindling savings. Early bit parts in projects like Midnight Madness, 1980, and the grittier class of 1984-1982 kept his professional hope alive, but did little to distinguish him in a field crowded with similarly ambitious young actors. He studied how casting directors evaluated presence in 10-second intervals, refining a delivery that fused quick timing with an undercurrent of sincerity, turning his physical slightness into kinetic charm rather than perceived limitation. Even when roles were sparse, he treated each waiting room as rehearsal space, calibrating micro-expressions, vocal inflections, and the rhythmic lift that could pivot a line from ordinary to indelible, while night shifts of anxiety became informal classrooms in resilience. The pivotal invitation arrived when NBC sought to retool a fledgling family sitcom centered originally on baby boomers. Producers of what became Family Ties recognized that Fox's audition injected electricity into the character of Alex P. Caton, a young conservative whose buttoned-down ambition contrasted humorously with his ex-hippie parents. Initially, network executives doubted his bankable appeal, citing stature and perceived softness. Yet, a persistent push from show creator Gary David Goldberg secured the casting, illustrating early how advocacy from creators can counterbalance corporate caution. Debuting in 1982, Fox sharpened Alex's rapid-fire monologues, eyebrow flicks, and pocket calculator gestural shorthand into a comedic grammar that audiences quickly internalized, transforming the character into a cultural shorthand for youthful entrepreneurial drive. Amid shifting early Reagan-era values, ratings climbed as viewers tuned in for verbal sparring that blended ideological satire with familial warmth, and award recognition followed. 3 consecutive Primetime Emmy Awards during the series' prime, cementing Fox as a dominant sitcom presence and granting him the agency to explore film stardom. Opportunity and overload converged when Back to the Future required emergency recasting after weeks of principal photography. Fox, already balancing multi-camera tapings for Family Ties, negotiated a grueling nocturnal schedule. Sitcom rehearsals by day, feature shooting by night, commutes between studio lots in a haze of caffeine, and concentrated focus. This period showcased extraordinary time management discipline as he compartmentalized comedic beats for Alex P. Caton. then slipped into Marty McFly's skate-grabbing, guitar thrashing, rebellious optimism under Robert Smeech's direction. The film's 1985 release fused high-concept temporal mechanics with Fox's grounded relatability, allowing audiences to project their own adolescent anxieties into the DeLorean's chrome promise. His physical agility, quick pivots, startled backward steps, spontaneous grin resets became kinesthetic punctuation marks, animating tension and humor simultaneously. The film's box office dominance and enduring quotability elevated Fox from television success to international cinematic recognition, prompting rapid greenlighting of sequels that would later expand the mythos with more intricate timelines and a darker alternate 1985 canvas. Parallel to that flagship franchise, Fox cured a filmography that avoided reductive pigeonholes. Teen Wolf, shot before but released after Back to the Future, leveraged metaphorical lycanthropy as allegory for adolescent self-acceptance, and his performance negotiated the tonal tightrope between slapstick and earnestness, reinforcing his flexibility with genre hybrids. In The Secret of My Success, 1987, he embodied upward mobility satire, orchestrating double identity farce inside corporate labyrinths, while Bright Lights, Big City, 1988, pivoted sharply toward urban drama, challenging assumptions that his screen charisma could function only inside comedic frameworks. Each choice manifested a deliberate career strategy. Alternate broad audience pleasers with character studies that stretched emotional register, thereby insulating long-term relevance against the volatility of single-genre oversaturation. The late 1980s into early 1990s saw Fox experimenting with tonal diversity. The Southern-imbued romantic comedy of Doc Hollywood, the political intrigue of The American President, ensemble support displaying collaborative generosity and ventures, into voice work that preached later expansions into animation and family features. By treating each set as a laboratory for precision, how a half-second pause might invite empathetic projection, how a slight forward lean could telegraph youthful urgency. He codified a personal performance toolkit that aspiring actors would later dissect in workshops and retrospectives. His collaborations with seasoned cinematographers and editors refined an intuitive sense of camera geography, enabling him to tailor micro-movements to lens choice, wider frames prompting broader physical beats, tighter coverage inviting subtle ocular shifts, thereby amplifying editorial rhythm. Television re-emerged strategically in the mid-1990s with Spin City, where Fox applied accumulated screen wisdom to a single-camera multi-et hybrid political workplace comedy, co-creating a tonal palette that balanced rapid banter, farcical policy, predicaments, and character vulnerability. Serving also as executive producer, he influenced narrative pacing, insisted on ensemble elevation rather than star-centric scripting, and integrated topical humor while preserving evergreen character arcs, illustrating a maturing creative philosophy oriented towards sustainability and collaborative culture. Rating success and additional awards confirmed his capacity to reinvent sitcom energy for a new decade, even as subtle physical adjustments hinted at private health challenges soon to be publicly disclosed. What distinguishes Fox's success trajectory is not merely accumulated accolades, but strategic modulation. An early television archetype transformed into an agile cinematic protagonist, then into a multi-hyphenate steward of narrative ecosystems. His career blueprint emphasizes adaptive reinvention, cross-medium fluency, and a refusal to allow initial breakout branding to calcify into creative constraint. By the close of this pure ascent phase, he had assembled a legacy architecture, iconic character Marty McFly, emblematic sitcom figure Alex P. Caton, executive producer leader Spin City, poised to be reframed through the lens of personal health revelations that would redefine his public mission and expand the social resonance of his celebrity capital. when Michael J. Fox noticed a mysterious tremor in his left pinky finger on the Orlando set of Doc Hollywood in early 1991. He dismissed it as fatigue from relentless filming schedules, but subsequent stiffness in his wrist and an unsettling sense that his body was ignoring routine commands prompted clinical evaluation. At the astonishingly young age of 29, he received a life-altering diagnosis: young-onset Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder more commonly associated with patients in their 60s. The revelation detonated silently inside his psyche. Career momentum, public persona, and private identity all suddenly orbited this invisible biological glitch. Dopamine, producing neurons in his substantia nigra, fading faster than scripts could arrive. Specialists forecast a decade of viable acting before severe motor complications. Yet Fox's instinctive response was strategic compartmentalization. He cloaked symptoms behind prop placement, satirical self-deprecation, and meticulously planned blocking, while privately navigating an expanding pharmacological timetable of carbidopa-levodopa doses, calibrated to each day's shooting demands. For 7 years, he guarded the secret, mastering techniques to disguise tremors on camera, wrapping a hand around a clipboard, tucking an arm in pockets, scheduling takes to coincide with medication peaks, and relied on humor to deflect colleagues. Curiosity, periodic dyskinesia, drug-induced involuntary movements sometimes erupted between setups, forcing rapid wardrobe adjustments or creative edits that most audiences overlooked. Those clandestine years cultivated a deep empathy for anyone, silently managing chronic illness while maintaining outward normalcy. Fox later described this dual existence as a shared apartment arrangement where optimism occupied daylight hours and fear claimed the insomniac nights. Alcohol, previously recreational, seeped into coping rituals, threatening professional reliability, until a decisive moment in 1992 when he saw despair in his wife, Tracy Pollan's eyes, and recognized the unsustainability of denial. Sobriety became a non-negotiable pillar, allowing him to address Parkinson's shedding with mental clarity. In 1998, while starring in Spin City, he chose public disclosure via People magazine feature and a subsequent Barbara Walters special, Reframing. Vulnerability as agency. The admission transformed him overnight from beloved entertainer to global face of Parkinson's advocacy, and the relatability he had cultivated on screen translated into unprecedented public engagement. Phone lines at national Parkinson organizations crashed. Donations surged, and newly diagnosed patients found a champion whose humor diluted stigma. Fox leveraged this momentum to found the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research in 2000, crafting an operational model that prized speed, transparency, and outcome-oriented grant-making. Under his leadership, the foundation adopted venture philanthropy principles, steering more than $1 billion into therapeutic development pipelines, biomarker discovery initiatives, and global clinical trial networks while galvanizing collaborations among academia, biotech, and government agencies once siloed by competitive inertia. As his disease advanced, Fox confronted an evolving landscape of motor and non-motor symptoms. Rigidity in axial muscles that complicated posture, freezing episodes that interrupted gait mid-stride, microraphia shrinking handwritten notes into cramped caricatures, and fragmented sleep plagued by vivid REM, behavioral disturbances. A phylomotomy procedure in 1998 provided temporary tremor relief but introduced speech modulation challenges. Years later, deep brain stimulation became a consideration, though he ultimately prioritized adaptive medication, regimens, and physical therapy over additional neurosurgery. He cultivated an intensive exercise routine: stationary cycling, Pilates, core work, boxing drills adapted for balance deficits that research suggested could slow, functional decline by promoting neuroplasticity and cardiovascular resilience. Mindfulness techniques developed with trainer Peter Kay and later integrated into foundation-funded wellness guides bolstered emotional equanimity, helping him listen to his body's shifting language rather than resisting it. Public appearances evolved into masterclasses on radical optimism. Congressional testimonies blended scientific rigor with autobiographical candor, advocating for stem cell research and increased NIH funding. Talk show interviews illuminated the everyday absurdities of life with Parkinson's, like casting a stubborn hand as the unpaid extra that steals scenes at inopportune moments, thereby transforming clinical jargon into accessible narrative hooks that humanize the disorder. In memoirs such as Lucky Man, Always Looking Up, and No Time Like the Future, Fox chronicled disease progression not as a linear decline, but as a series of adaptive reinventions, extracting philosophical insights about gratitude, presence, and community interdependence. Each publication functioned as both personal catharsis and motivational blueprint, positioning Parkinson's not simply as an ailment to combat, but as a lens refining purpose. However, the journey was punctuated by additional medical adversities. Benign but precariously placed spinal tumor discovered in 2018 demanded intricate surgery that risked paralysis, followed by arduous gait retraining that left him reliant on walkers and wheelchairs, before gradually reclaiming ambulatory autonomy. Falls became recurring hazards. One in 2019 fractured his arm so severely that titanium hardware now reinforces the bone, forcing him to recalibrate household layouts, adopt assistive technology like gyroscopic utensils, and embrace a slower cadence that still allowed participation in family life and selective acting projects. Amid these setbacks, his candor remained unflinching. He publicly acknowledged moments of depressive questioning, yet invariably redirected focus toward achievable micro-victories. Standing unassisted, walking his dog Gus, or delivering a keynote with minimal card assistance, thereby modeling resilience as an accumulative incremental craft rather than an innate trait. Fox's health odyssey ultimately transcends autobiography. It has reshaped clinical trial recruitment paradigms through the Foundation's Fox Insight digital study platform, empowered wearable sensor development for symptom tracking, and accelerated FDA approvals of novel therapeutics like focused ultrasound tremor interventions. By merging celebrity storytelling with scientific infrastructure building, he has blurred the boundary between patient and policymaker, illustrating how lived experience can inform research priorities more effectively than detached hypothesis generation. His narrative stands as empirical evidence that a diagnosis, while biologically restrictive, can catalyze expansive social impact when met with strategic transparency, disciplined optimism, and collaborative ambition. Grief first stalked Michael J. Fox in 1990 when his father William died of a heart attack at only 59. Mere weeks before Back to the Future Part 3 wrapped. The man who had driven a Rust Colt pickup across 2 countries to launch Michael's Hollywood dreams suddenly vanished, leaving an empty chair at premieres where he should have basked in parental pride. The loss forced Fox to confront the uneasy trade-off of itinerant success. Diaries thick with press tour itineraries, but thin on bedside farewells. Unable to pause a blockbuster machine already in motion, he internalized the regret like a private subtext in every interview smile, reinforcing his later insistence on carving protected family windows amid professional whirlwinds. That early bereavement also seeded a resolve to honor his father's ethic of service, a thread that would later weave into the philanthropic architecture of his foundation. The ensuing decade brought more subtle erosions. Each incremental Parkinson's symptom felt like a small funeral for the spontaneous physicality that had defined roles such as Marty McFly leaping across guitar amplifiers or Alex P. Caton storming the kitchen set with caffeinated swagger. Shooting. Days that once flowed on instinct now required choreography against tremor cycles. In every abandoned audition, a swashbuckling period piece, a sports drama demanding fluid footwork, registered as a loss of artistic possibility. Fox framed these forfeitures not as catastrophes, but as training in selective surrender. Yet their cumulative weight mirrored bereavement, prompting nights where he'd replay earlier performances and silently eulogize vanished ease of motion. This ongoing diminution, invisible to casual fans, forged a deep kinship with anyone navigating. Chronic illnesses' steady encroachment on identity. Friendship circles, too, endured painful contractions. The 2004 death of Christopher Reeve, a confidant from late 80s charity circuits, resonated profoundly. Both men had become accidental spokespeople for neurological research. Fox for Parkinson's, Reeve for spinal cord injury, often sharing lobbying quarters on Capitol Hill. Reeve's passing underscored biological fragility and redoubled Fox's urgency to accelerate cure timelines. Other industry colleagues, director Gary David Goldberg in 2013, who had championed Fox against NBC skepticism. Parkinson's pioneer Dr. Bill Langston, who guided early clinical decisions, also exited life stage. Each departure carving a new vacancy that energized his advocacy yet demanded emotional recalibration. He developed a private ritual of writing farewell letters he never mailed, distilling gratitude into words that clarified purpose whenever grief blurred direction. Within the immediate family, crises emerged not as deaths, but as intensive intersections of his own illness with parenting 4 children: Sam, twins, Aquina, and Skylar, and youngest Esmond, whose adolescence overlapped with periods of pronounced DISKYNES. Fox mourned missed father-daughter dances and high school plays where jerking limbs risked distracting attention, opting sometimes to watch from backstage monitors rather than auditorium seats. Though these choices shielded his kids from intrusive tabloid lenses, he later described them as micro-losses, moments of presence surrendered to optics management. Yet the children's unwavering acceptance, especially their habit of finishing his sentences during off periods, transformed what could have been chronic absence into adaptive intimacy, proving that vulnerability, when acknowledged, can fortify familial bonds rather than fracture them. Even the home in Manhattan's Upper East Side, once a sanctuary of pre-dawn guitar jams and pancake breakfasts, became a site of architectural grief after repeated falls necessitated tearing out beloved curved staircases and installing lift systems. Each renovation felt like a farewell to past agility, culminating in a 2019 accident where a shattered humerus left him gazing at ceiling beams while paramedics navigated those very modifications. Recovery demanded relinquishing independent showering, handwriting, and at times even reading without digital magnifiers. The humbling dependency reawakened adolescent insecurities about stature and capability, but Fox reframed the ordeal through stoic lenses. Every assistive device was merely a prop in a new scene, one still capable of inspiring if performed with candor. Cumulatively, these losses sculpted an outlook that rejects sentimental detours and centers actionable hope. Grief became data, fueling research budgets. Personal regret morphed into mentoring younger advocates, and physical improvisation evolved into educational demonstration. By narrating each setback publicly, yet without melodrama, Fox normalized conversations about mourning abilities rather than only loved ones, expanding societal literacy around invisible grief. His sustained empathy for caregivers, born from watching Tracy juggle roles of spouse, partner, and medical quarterback, further diversified his foundation's mission to include caregiver-centered resources, acknowledging that illness reverberates through entire relational ecosystems. As the year 2025 unfolds, Michael J. Fox greets each morning in Manhattan with a practiced stillness that belies his restless dopamine circuitry. Seated meditation, a short gratitude inventory recited aloud, and a gentle breathing cadence that primes neural pathways for controlled movement. He follows with 30 minutes on a low-impact cycling rig fitted with inertial sensors, feeding real-time metrics to his physiotherapist's dashboard. The data guide micro-adjustments and cadence that keep heart rate variability within neuroprotective zones. Breakfast is a proteinric scramble peppered with turmeric and black pepper. Spices his nutritionist correlates with reduced neuroinflammation, while Tracy reads headlines aloud so he can focus on utensil grip without visual multitasking. Such routines illustrate how Fox has recast daily living into a personalized clinical trial where every rep, recipe, and mindfulness repetition is measured against symptom diaries that his foundation's research team aggregates with consent to refine. Patient-reported outcome protocols. Professional creativity remains vibrant, albeit channeled through formats compatible with fluctuating motor control. Voice acting gigs, most recently a cameo as a time-bending hologram mentor in the animated series Quantum Pups, allow him to perform seated in a sound booth. Leveraging vocal dexterity, the Parkinson's speech therapy has strengthened through rhythmic pacing drills. In 2024, he surprised Broadway audiences with a closing night walk-on during the musical adaptation of Back to the Future, greeting the crowd with Marty McFly's quintessential Great Scott before turning the spotlight toward Parkinson's research progress. Fox curates these appearances sparingly, prioritizing impact over volume, so each cameo lands like a cultural heartbeat, reminding fans that resilience can share the stage with nostalgia. Behind the scenes, he mentors emerging disabled performers, hosting quarterly Zoom salons where actors compare audition workarounds, e.g. using subtle script rests to mask tremor, and production managers learn to design inclusive set call sheets. The Michael J. Fox Foundation, now the world's largest non-governmental funder of Parkinson's research, reported surpassing $16 billion in total research funding this spring with particular excitement around a 2025 Phase 2 trial of LRRK2 kindness. Inhibitors demonstrating motor symptom reduction without cognitive side effects. Fox chairs monthly hybrid meetings, toggling between boardroom banter and meticulously prepared notes on patient-centric endpoints. He insists the Foundation's ethos remain urgency with integrity, pushing for accelerated regulatory pathways while respecting rigorous peer review. A new initiative, Project Relay, ships wearable sensors to underrepresented rural patients, democratizing access to biomarker studies and weaving equity into data lakes that have historically skewed urban and affluent. Fox's cameo in a 30-second PSA during the Super Bowl showcased participants swinging baseball bats, whisking bowls, or sketching portraits. Each action punctuated by the tagline, "Your movement moves science," and directed viewers to enroll within minutes via a QR code, balancing advocacy and health. Fox now observes a strict 3-week rule, no more than 21 consecutive days of travel or major immediate engagements before a scheduled regeneration block at his Vermont retreat. There he tends a herb garden planting basil with a modified trowel grip designed by occupational therapy students and practices. Melodic intonation therapy by singing folk standards to strengthen diaphragmatic support. Evenings often involve collaborative writing sessions with his eldest daughter Sam, who's drafting a series of children's books where a time traveler, loosely inspired by her father, teaches emotional regulation through adventure. These sessions reinforce familial bonds and model adaptive creativity, showing that cognitive storytelling remains untouched by dopamine deficits. Technological curiosity still animates Fox's public dialogue, partnering with the Silicon Valley Neuroc, STARTUP. He pilots closed-loop deep brain stimulation firmware that dynamically modulates pulse width based on real-time tremor detection, reducing side effect-induced speech blur by 40% during beta testing, while mindful of overhyping early results. He shares these experiences on the Foundation's podcast, translating electrophysiology into lay metaphors. It's like your thermostat learning when you're about to feel chilly and kicking in before you shiver, and inviting listeners to view themselves as co-engineers of therapeutic innovation. Such transparency demystifies experimental medicine and cultivates informed optimism rather than wishful naivety. Yet he remains candid about ongoing hardships. Nights where Donia knots his feet until tears slip unbidden. Mornings when bathroom routines stretch into hour-long negotiations with stiff joints. Instead of framing these episodes as setbacks, he presents them as tuition payments for the privilege of teaching others how persistence actually looks. Speaking at the 2025 World Congress on Parkinson's Disease, he opened not with data, but with an anecdote about fumbling a coffee mug, only for his service dog, Blue, to nudge a towel closer. An illustration of interdependence as a feature, not a flaw, of human experience. That keynote threaded humor. I break mugs so researchers can break codes, through calls for sustained multinational collaboration, earning a standing ovation from scientists who seldom see their benchwork contextualized through such lived immediacy. Looking ahead, Fox is executive producing a limited series adaptation of his 2023 documentary still for educational streaming platforms, embedding interactive modules where viewers can toggle symptom overlays to understand Brady rigidity and dyskinesia firsthand. He envisions classrooms where biology students explore neural circuits, while film majors dissect narrative structure, uniting disciplines exactly as his own life has fused entertainment and biomedical advocacy. Personally, he aims to complete an essay collection titled Momentum, weaving reflections on time perception, fatherhood, and the physics of hope. The project progresses through dictation software that translates tremor-laced speech into prose, later refined in collaborative workshops with fellow patient authors. In practical terms, Fox's day concludes around 9:00 p.m. after evening meds and a slow tempo blues jam on his trusty 1956 Gibson, a ritual that anchors muscle memory and nourishes identity as musician, a role he refuses to relinquish. As tremor currents ripple through chord changes, he adjusts tempo rather than resisting oscillations, turning neurobiology into accidental vibrato. The sight is emblematic, a man negotiating decline through creative alchemy, transforming uncontrollable movement into music that, though imperfect, resonates because of its imperfection. In that resonance lies Fox's enduring message. Life's narrative arc is not defined by uninterrupted ascent, but by